Cloud. All right. Welcome in, y'all. So super excited. We are having our nutrition talk. So we are going to go through some stuff. We are very excited about our March to Summer program. This was something fun. I know we've sent out a number of communications, but here's the deal. We wanted to come up with something that was just going to kickstart us off into summer, right? Something that was just going to just get us moving, kind of bring some camaraderie, have a little fun in the facility, and just create some unity. And knowing that there are things that everybody kind of shares, like there are struggles, whether with nutrition or just questions about things. And so we wanted to put this whole thing together, and I thought, you know what, we're just going to do a series of these, and we'll do it every other week, and we'll go through it so that way you can get some information. The goal of this is to teach out segments and go like, hey, here's what good nutrition looks like. Here's preparation, going through all of the stuff, and then also to be a place to ask questions. So that way you can figure out like, hey, struggling with this, how do I do that? Getting an understanding. I know we talk about like macronutrients or micronutrients and all the kind of things. It can be confusing, and every other week there seems to be a study that tells you to stop eating this and eat that and get rid of this thing, and it's just really, really hard. So want to be a place that we can provide you with a ton of information, but also we want to provide you with more than that. Our goal is ultimately to coach for transformation, both physically, mentally. And so when we look at transformation, we think there's three components of that. Number one, transformation we think is education, right? So we want to educate to make sure that we are up on the latest information. That way we can provide you with stuff that's actually going to work and allow you to achieve results better. Second is habit formation. We want to make sure that we are building the habits over time that are going to allow you to have success, because nothing changes in your life until you change something you do daily. That's something that we believe strongly. So education, habit formation, and then application. Really, it comes down to those things. We have to learn, we have to build habits, and then we have to apply it, right? Because we know that knowledge is all around us. We can go on the internet, we can go onto Google, we can figure out, we can look up all kinds of stuff. But at the end of the day, we have to go out and we have to apply it. So the goal of tonight is to be able to walk you through some stuff and then create a forum where you can ask questions if you have them. And then we're going to continue to do this over the next couple of weeks. And this is an opportunity, if you use it appropriately, this can be an accountability check-in. Everybody needs accountability. Everybody needs accountability. Okay. So whether it's, talking to people at the gym and creating some, camaraderie with there and going like, hey, I need a little help. I'm struggling with this. Great. Could be us coaches. Obviously we're there to help, but also other people. Cause look, everybody's kind of going through, similar scenarios. Not all completely the same, but everybody has a struggle in some way. So we want to do that. So that's the goal of tonight. And ultimately, we want to provide you with so much. You're just like, wow, this is great. And then we go out and apply it. Okay. So that's the goal of tonight and going forward. Detail wise, here's what I'm going to do. We're going to talk about nutrition overall. I'm going to give you, context of what nutrition looks like. And where we're at, what we think is good, and how we have developed that. Second, we're going to dig into some details about macronutrients and how they impact your body and how we use them, and how do we adapt over time. So we're going to get into that. Then we're going to talk about daily habits and how we start to build those things and change. We've done a lot of study on habit formation over the last year and really figuring out how we can help you to achieve better habits, because that's ultimately going to lead you to outcomes. And then last, we're going to talk actually about Team Builder, because Team Builder houses so much information that we wanted to find a place. This is part of the reason why we went with Team Builder, so that we could put everything into place rather than going like, hey, download this thing or check this email or go to this website. Like, let's just put it all in one place. And so it can be an aggregation spot. So you can have everything that we need and go through there. So we'll walk you through some of that and what that will look like going forward. So does that sound good? Mm-hmm. Great. Hi, Tammy, by the way. All right, so I'm going to start big picture and back up. The first thing that you need to know about nutrition from me is this. I don't think your weight is equal to your worth. Okay. What you weigh, what you look like, how you feel, all the physical things that we think about, and oftentimes are getting messages from the world and from our culture right now about what that means. I want you to know that I truly don't believe that that is equal to your worth, right? I think there's something more important there. So when we start to talk about that, I first want you to understand the context of, I'm going to explain to you about, weight loss, and I'm going to talk to you about, losing body fat and building lean muscle and all that kind of stuff. And I think it's important. It is, because it allows us to be the healthiest version of ourselves and be better. But that doesn't mean that we should tie our worth to the scale or to our weight. Okay. So I'll dig in. You know me, like, I can get really excited. I can get passionate. And sometimes I can sound like mean and rude because I'll be like, just do this, right? But I want you to understand, like, I'm coming at it from the context of, we love you guys and we want to be a part of how you can become the best version of yourself. Okay. But that doesn't mean that you have to be Johnny or Susie six pack. Okay. So especially you, Johnny, up there. But so I just wanted to start with that so that you understand the context of where we're at. Okay. That's not your worth. Okay. So I believe that. But with that being said, I do want you to achieve your goals. I do want you to live the best life that you have, or that you possibly can. I think this is a big deal because I posted a thing this morning, actually, on my Instagram and my stories. I was reading something, and it just said that basically there is no one else in the world that's like you. If you look at your fingerprint and you look at everything that's going on your finger, and you open up your hand and you look at all that, there is no one else that has that match in this world. And what's unique about that is this world needs all of us, right? And when we think about that, we think about, doing something big. Well, what about the people that are around you, your community? They and us, we all need the best version of ourselves. So with that, I think being the healthiest and being the best version of ourselves is super important. So number one, when we talk about achieving some kind of physical goal, is making sure that we have a specific goal. Number one, have a specific goal. If you want to go to Florida, right? You want to go to Orlando, or whatever. Let's pick Orlando. If you want to go there, we need to put it in the GPS so we can drive and get there. If you don't put it in the GPS, like, you can find your way probably south, but what's going to happen is along the way, you're going to make wrong turns. You're going to find yourself going miles out of the way. And then ultimately it's going to take you longer than you want to get there. And along that route, you're going to get super frustrated because you're going to be like, we've already been here. I don't even know where we are. And I'm not stopping to ask for directions, right? So, but we want to take and reduce the amount of stress and frustration that we have. Most of us don't achieve what we want because we don't know what we want. We don't speak it. We don't say it. We don't write it down. We just kind of go like, I want to get healthier. I want to lose some weight. I want to feel better. Like, those are great, but those aren't goals. That's a general statement. Okay. So looking at it and going like, what do you actually want to achieve? You have to write it down if you really want to get there. Okay. So number one is having a specific goal. Number two, and you hear me talk about this a lot, it's have a purpose. One of my coaches, Ben Newman, he talks about having a burn, because when I say purpose or your why, people are like, well, I don't know what my why is, and I don't know what my purpose is, and that can be super frustrating. Okay, well, let's reshape that question and say, what's your burn? What's the thing that kind of ignites a fire in you when you like look in the mirror, put on some pants, or do something? You're like, dang it, I don't want to do this again. I get frustrated, or maybe there's something that pushes you forward. Either way, we talk about this in the shape of gold medals or German shepherds. People either run to something or they run away from something. And oftentimes when we paint this big picture of like, hey, you can achieve whatever you want and go get the big shiny star, it's too difficult to comprehend. We can't even figure out like how I would get myself on the medal stand in the Olympics, right? But you go like, I don't want to be where I'm at. So that's my starter. So how do I get away from that? How do I start moving away from that? Literally, one of my favorite things, I had someone in our metabolic reset group, that individual coaching that we do, she wrote in, I said, well, what's the thing that's burning within you? And she's like, look, I had a baby 3 years ago and I still look like I'm pregnant, and that's super frustrating. And I was like, dang, that's real, right? And so it's been a good motivation and a starting point for her to move forward. Eventually that'll change, and it is changing for her, but you got to start somewhere. So you have to have a purpose and a reason for doing this. And usually it goes beyond what looks like, on the scale in the clothes and all that kind of stuff. It goes deeper, right? When I was 296 pounds, for me, it was knowing that I wouldn't be able to be the dad that I wanted to be active and to be able to play with my boys. I knew that, and that was super frustrating for me. And that's what literally kickstarted my journey with my weight loss. So having a purpose is number two. Have your goals, have your purpose. Okay. And then from there, we need to start putting in some action items. Okay. When you look at this, when we go into Team Builder, if you haven't done this before, we put in our starting point goal setting sheet in there. And we think that's really important. Okay. And the reason why is number one, it gives you something to anchor to, because oftentimes we like make these goals, say we want to do these things, and then we like walk away, right? And then we forget about it. And so what I want to do is I want to have this anchor point for you to go like, this is what I'm doing. Okay. Here's my goal. Here's what I want to achieve. And here's why. I'm going to write that in. And then the next thing in there, it talks about daily actions. You see, first we make our habits, and then our habits make us. So ultimately what you do every single day is what you're going to influence the outcome, right? Today's behavior influences tomorrow's outcomes. And so in order to get to where we want to go, we have to start making some sort of change. So we have to build in our daily habits. And you go like, well, that's really broad, right? Because like 60% of our brain is wired, 60% of what we do is wired by our brain to go, I want to just do a habit because I don't want to think about it. Just let me do it over and over again. Our brain tries to process to make this as easy as possible in our life, right? So we want to create daily habits. And the easiest way to do that is to think in terms of like, what's something that I need to start and what's something that I need to stop, all right? When you look at that, those are the places that we begin. Like, don't think pie in the sky, big picture. Success happens one step at a time. It's an aggregation of marginal gains. If you look at, there's a book called Atomic Habits by James Clear, which I highly recommend. That is on a list of books that I recommend you read. Atomic Habits is super important. And he talks about David Brailsford, who took over as the lead of the British cycling team for their Olympic team. And they had not won a gold medal ever. And they won like one championship in 80 years. Well, after they put this into effect, they put this aggregation of marginal gains. And it started with like, they didn't think like big picture, like we need to throw everything out. They started going like, hey, what pillow should we sleep with in the hotel? Which bike shorts are the best? What tires should we use, right? So they're going like, we know we're training our athletes, we know we're pushing in, but how do we start switching little things? And within 5 years, they became the most dominant team. And for a 10-year period, they won a significant amount. I don't even remember the number. I can figure it out for you and I'll send it to you. But it's like 66 world championships over the course of 10 years. They won 8 gold medals in the Olympics, and they became the dominant and premier team in all of cycling. And it all happened by this aggregation of marginal gains, getting 1% better. So when we step back and think of what do we need to do right now, you know, if I said, hey, there's one thing that you need to stop doing, I would wager that all of you would say, I know what that is. I know what that is. So how do you do that? You start taking it out. That means you stop doing something, you change it up. You know, if you go from like, we always use the example, if you're drinking a bunch of soda, like stop, you know, start to taper that off or cut it off completely if you can do that. But what do you need to stop or what do you need to start doing? Okay. And that's it. Pick one thing and start to move on that. There are so many habits and things that people will tell you you need to do, but in reality, you can't start all of them at one time. So you got to start with one thing at a time. Get 1% better every single day. So habits. And then next we talked about accountability. Who's going to be your accountability partner? Who's somebody that you can talk to, you can reach out to, and they can help you with, right? Our coaches are obviously here for you and can have conversations with you, but also having somebody in your world in this group potentially, or somebody at Movement, and you just be like, hey, I'll be accountable to this, right? Those are the things, those are the people and opportunities that will allow you to keep moving forward, because everyone needs accountability, right, Lisa? That's what you said. You had this big head shake earlier. Everybody needs accountability. And guess what? None of it's fun. None of it's fun because nobody wants to be called out on it. You know, we went to Utah this weekend. We were meeting with our business group, and we got called out on a whole bunch of stuff. And it was like, ooh, that doesn't feel great, but we'll change that. We'll get to work on it. So anyway, no fun, but accountability. Okay, so we need to make sure we get our goals. We have a purpose of why we're doing that, and we need to build our daily habits, stop, and then have accountability with that. Okay. Also with accountability, I would highly recommend you write in preemptively, because here's what I want you to know. We are not doing a diet, but I know you're going to get off track, because guess what? How many people get off track? Everybody gets off track at some point. But in advance, you have got to do the job of choosing what you're going to do when you get off of track. What are you going to do? Who are you going to reach out to? What are you going to do? How do you stop and flip and whatever the case may be? You got to write that out in advance, and write those out in the moment where you're thinking about it and processing it, and go, what would allow you to do that? What would trigger you to go, I need to do this? You know, you haven't been to the gym in a little bit because I got, just got busy, whatever. Like, how do you do that? Book the session for tomorrow, right? Just book it. You're not eating the way that you want to do. Like, how do you prep and prepare? Maybe that night, just get ready for the next day. Whatever it is, write in advance and predetermine the steps that you're going to take in order to get you moving, okay? And that's the next piece. As we look at all this stuff, the whole reason for the aggregation of marginal gains and pushing forward is to create momentum. Creating momentum is the hardest part of nutrition, okay? Because I will tell you that oftentimes we're like, I'm going to do this thing, right? I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to change my diet. I'm going to do whatever, right? And it gets super frustrating because it doesn't happen very quickly, right? If we change our diet and you look at it and go, I'm going to eat salads for lunch. I'm going to eat a couple eggs and some toast for breakfast or whatever. And I'm going to eat, chicken and broccoli for dinner, right? And you go like, I do that for 4 days or something. And then you don't, lose a whole lot of weight. And you're like, that's a lot of effort. I'm hungry and I'm cranky and I'm not very happy about this. This stinks. I'm going to stop doing it, right? Then you go, all right, after that 4 days, and you go 3 days off, and you're like, wait a second, I don't want to do that. Let me get back on. We keep spinning our wheels. All right, use this analogy, and I don't know if it's very clear, but it makes sense in my head. If you've ever gotten your car stuck in like mud or snow, and you've ever had, we just did this when I was in Utah, it was icy, right? And so we had to like get the car rocking, right? You got to push it, right? You got to get it moving and overcome that inertia, and then right, and then you actually get it going, and then you got to keep it going, right? It's so hard to break that initial inertia of overcoming inertia, right? So don't put yourself in a scenario where you have to constantly start over. And that's where like I do well all week and then I mess up on the weekends, right? And you get frustrated because then you go like, well, I feel like I put in a lot of effort here and then a little effort there. And then the hard part is I feel like every Monday I'm starting over. It's Groundhog Day. So creating momentum is the first place. And I will tell you, in order to create some momentum, I think that there are things that we need to put into place to make sure that we reduce the amount of times that we have to start over. You know, and choosing to do some simple things and continue to build on top of them is one of them. Because I know when we do the New Year's diet, right, everything changes tomorrow, you know, on January 1st, I'll never eat ice cream again. I'm never drinking beer again or whatever, or I'm never having takeout food again or whatever it is, right? We say those things and you can't back them up. I mean, 99% of the time, okay? So because we get all ambitious and it's great and I love it, but then you're like, that's not possible, right? So building momentum means one step at a time. I will tell you guys, I found myself in September. So September 4th was the start of this of a journey for me. I was I was not happy with where I was physically. I was 12 to 15 pounds over where I wanted to be, and I was not very happy about it. And you know, I could have started off like all gung ho, but unfortunately and fortunately for me, I was coming off of having COVID. And so I had to start slow. And it forced me to go like, I can't go like crazy at the gym because I couldn't breathe. And, you know, I had to start making small changes one step at a time. But I continue to build on it. And I have a routine now that would probably look and feel really complex to most people on the outside, but it's built up over time and it's become my routine. And so I want you to think like, how can you create a routine that allows you to build over time and have success there rather than having to start over every single time, okay? Every Monday, right? So I wrote this down and I talked to people about, I want you to live the way that you want to live life, right? I want you to feel free and live your life. Now, we talk about that, but freedom comes after the work, right? In order to get to where you want to go, you got to put the work in first. And that's something that is not super sexy and it's not really glamorous. And that means that if you want to get somewhere, you kind of got to lock yourself down for a little bit as you build up your habits, right? And you continue to put in things in place that are going to lead you to success. So creating momentum. For some people, that could mean that you're going to, like, if you're eating out a bunch, you need to start reducing that significantly, right? This is always, the easiest one always goes back to like soda. I don't know if anybody's drinking soda on here, but you go, look, if you're drinking a soda a day, right, that's 240, 250 calories that we could cut out. Even if you cut out half of them throughout the course of the week, you're 750 to 1,000 calories down a week. Bang, like that. And you didn't cut out all of them yet or whatever, right? So we need to start moving in that direction and start making some decisions about who you want to be because you clearly defined your goals and your purpose of why you're doing it. Next is this: master the mundane. There is very little about making a nutritional change that is sexy. Sorry to tell you. I think you already know this, but it's not super exciting. Okay. But when we look at the people that are successful, I was having a conversation with Coach Kyle about this earlier today. We were talking about different stuff, and I was talking to him about success in different ways, but I thought about like the work of like Kobe Bryant, and that he's pretty universal and people know him, right? But look at his habits and what he did in practice that enabled him to do the things that he wanted to do on the court. You see, we look at the big picture, the end picture, and go like, oh, I want to look like that. He plays basketball like this. He's so good. I want to play like that, or I want to do this thing. But what we don't see, we've seen it now more posthumously for him, but what we didn't see was the work and the hours that he was putting in the quiet, in the dark, training 3 times a day, getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning so he could go and he could outwork everybody else. And it's just a matter of putting in that time and effort, but being okay with going like, this is probably going to take longer than you want. I'll tell you my journey since September, I put in a lot of effort and a lot of time, and it has definitely taken longer than I thought it would. But I've done it in a sustainable way that I've been able to hold on to it and do it well, rather than I lost weight, I gained weight, I lost weight, I gained weight, and then you're like, well, this stinks, right? And then you get super frustrated. So it's a little bit, see you, Lisa, I have to go, sorry, whatever, just kidding.
Sorry about that, other plans.
You're good, go be great, we're recording. Okay. So mastering the mundane, it's gonna take you longer than you thought, but that's okay, because this is not, and shouldn't be, we shouldn't look at this anymore as a diet. Like that's a word we just gotta get rid of. Because if you're interested in speed, like you're ultimately probably gonna be frustrated, because the restrictions that diets put on us ultimately lead us to binge more. The greater the restriction, the greater the binge. This is why if we slowly start to move and make progress over time, that's better than going like, I'm never eating ice cream ever again. Because guess what? Tomorrow you're going to wake up and the thought that's going through your head is, don't eat ice cream, don't eat ice cream, don't eat ice cream. And guess what? You're probably going to want to eat some ice cream. You're going to have to fight that all the time, right?
Yep.
So that's the deal. So mastering the mundane. If we think about it, the working out, we love training you guys. That portion though, comparatively is easy. The 1 hour that you go in and you put in hard work and you guys work so hard, but the difficult part is then you go, what do you do with the other 23? Okay, we got some sleep in there, we got things that we need to do, but that's part of it. And creating momentum means that we have to master the mundane and be okay with, if you want to live that, live a life where you're like, hey, I'm in a good spot and I can kind of maintain this, and I can have some ice cream if I want, or we're at a birthday party and I feel, all right, I want to have some cake, like, and feel fine, feel good about that, you should. But there's also a period in there, you're like, if I've really got some goals, and you go, you know what, I'm kind of gonna lock this down for a little bit. And just go, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm not gonna cheat myself, because ultimately I'm gonna be the one that's frustrated with it. And the problem with us being frustrated with ourselves is it leaks out onto other people, and generally the people that you love, and then they don't want to be around you. So the goal is how do we do this in a sustainable way? So we post this. This is one of my favorite posts that I think we've ever talked through, and part of this came from my coach Ben Newman, and it's this: we want to value the process over the prize. The process over the prize. So building out your daily habits is ultimately going to lead you to success, but it's also going to create a lifestyle that you love, or a lifestyle that's sustainable, because guess what? If you can't sustain something, you're going to get rid of it. So we need to find ways that will allow us to focus on the process rather than the prize. Too often we go, I want to lose weight, I want to lose 20 pounds, and I'm going to do it by Memorial Day, or I'm going to do this. And I told you earlier, I like specific goals, but the problem is they need to be rooted in reality. I think it's very important to understand exactly where you are and exactly what you want to achieve, because it's ultimately going to let you select goals that are important to you but be realistic with them in order to build something that is sustainable over time. Okay, so process over price. Now, as we look at what we're doing, I talk a lot about fat loss because I think that's more important than just body weight loss. See, many people talk about, hey, I want to lose some weight, I want to do this, and this is why we bought the InBody, and I highly recommend. We got for the next at least 12 weeks, we've got 2 InBodies a week that we're offering for you guys, and the reason why is the InBody goes beyond the scale, right? It gives us a bigger picture. Now, sometimes that's a little confusing because then you're like, well, I gained muscle, I lost muscle, I gained water, I gained body fat, whatever. I lost body fat, my weight went up, but my body fat went down and my muscle went up. Like, how is that? I don't understand. And look, I'd love to be able to tell you I can answer every question perfectly, but the real key is looking at trends and to be able to identify patterns and where we're going. Okay, so body fat allows us to be healthy long term. A lot of times we'll say something like, I want to weigh X because that's what I weighed in high school, or that's what I weighed, I don't know, before I had kids or whatever. And you go like, it was a long time ago, and our bodies change over time. So looking at an InBody allows us to do that. And so we're offering you guys that for twice a month, because I want to be able to help you keep tabs on what you're doing. So that way you can see trends and patterns faster. Okay, so we can look at that and go, hey, you know what you're doing is working, keep going. Just continue to do the things that you're doing. Or we pull it up and we look at it and we go like, this isn't working. So what do we need to do? We can make those switches faster rather than doing it at a month level. Doing it every 2 weeks allows us, 2 weeks is a time period that we use because we want to, in order to create some momentum and understand if a plan is truly working, we kind of got to give it some time to work. But 2 weeks is kind of that window to go like, hey, is it working? Yeah, we see some progress. Let's keep going. Or no, let's switch it out. That's kind of where it's at. So I would highly recommend you do that. As we look at breaking down, how am I doing so far? Everybody tracking? We good? Make sense?
Yep, it's good.
Great. All right. So as we look at macronutrients, so macronutrients, when we break this down, they really come down to 3 or 4 things. Okay. So we look at protein, carbohydrates, fat, and then fiber we put in there as well, because that's important for us to have. But the 3 main ones that we talk about are protein, carbs, and fat. And what I want you to know is there are 2 things that are going on here. As we look at, losing body weight, losing body fat, you can achieve those things and actually not do it in a super healthy way, right? Because we can just look at numbers and play with them, and you go like, you could technically go out and have some Pop-Tarts or whatever, I don't know, and lose some weight. We want to do this eating the macronutrients that we want, while also getting the minerals and the micronutrients and the vitamins that will allow us to be successful and healthy long term. But when we look at macronutrients, one of the things that we key in on, and this is a focus for us, we do strength training and movement fitness, and then we also do some metabolic training. And the goal is that we would build lean muscle tissue, right? Lean muscle tissue allows us to do a couple things. Number one, it allows us to build muscle, to have power, and long term, that allows us to live independently and avoid falls. And for some of you that are younger, that's like blah, 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 whatever. But in reality, it makes a big deal long term. The second reason that goes with that is that over time, we lose muscle, and that has a massive impact on our metabolism. If you have experienced this yourself, or know people that have, and you go like, you know what, I'm 40, I'm 50, my body just doesn't work the way it used to. Well, yes, that's probably true in some form or fashion, but I will tell you, I know firsthand, and going through it this year has really helped me to remember and to have this perspective. Certainly things can get and change and be a little more difficult over time, but you can still adapt your metabolism over time, okay? But we have to feed it with the right things. And protein is one of the keys and one of the things that we focus in on. You see, our body does not make protein, okay? It is something that we have to take in every single day. It's, protein is made up of amino acids, and we have essential and non-essential amino acids. But basically, when we take carbs and fat, when we eat carbs and fat, our body uses some of them for energy, and it stores the rest, right? It stores our fat, it's triglycerides, it stores our carbohydrates as glycogen in our liver and our muscles. And so it has this store when our body's like, hey, we need some energy. It's like, hey, we'll break off a little bit and send it out, and there you go, okay? And so when we overeat, that's where those glycogen stores and your triglycerides and your fatty acids start to rise, and that's when we put on body weight, right? Well, our body doesn't make protein, so we need to feed it. And so the cool thing about protein is when you eat it, it costs you energy to eat, all right? So it's not like you're not going to burn 1,000 calories eating a chicken breast, all right? But you are going to, that would be super cool, right? Like, how'd you lose weight? I just eat chicken breast all day. But there is an energy cost to that, okay? And then in addition to that, building up lean muscle tissue allows our metabolism to work more efficiently, okay? And having that lean muscle will allow our metabolism to work better and faster. Whether you've heard like stoke the fire or whatever, like as we eat more protein, it allows our body to function more optimally. So we want to build lean muscle tissue, okay? So protein is how we do that. Carbohydrates often get a bad rap. Carbohydrates are not bad in and of themselves, just like fat is not bad in and of itself, okay? But it's what we do with it. Carbohydrates are our body's main source of fuel. You can get fuel without carbohydrates, but it's really hard. And if you've ever done it, I've done it. You don't want to be around the person that's not eating a lot of carbohydrates, okay? Because it is just not fun. So carbohydrates are our body's main source of fuel. Now, as we break that down, you go like there's simple carbohydrates and there's complex carbohydrates. Simple are things that have more sugar in them. Complex are more starchy things, right? So your potatoes and your whole wheat pasta and whole grain rice and all that kind of stuff. So all of those things, and again, they're not bad. It's what we use and how we utilize it, okay? So there's that. And then as we look at fat is super important. Eating fat does not mean we get fat, okay? That's very important. Fat is important for our brain. It allows our brain to work. It helps our joints feel and work more efficiently. And that is very important. It is also a source of energy when we need it and call upon it for like long-term activities, okay? Fiber just allows our body to move food more efficiently. We don't technically digest it, but it allows us to flush out some food unless we eat too much, and then it can kind of bind us up a little bit. So we want to watch that. But fiber is very important. Okay. So as we go through this, one of the things that we want to recommend is that we make sure that we build our food intake and we start with protein. So one of the things that we have is our protein is based off of basically your body weight. Now, some of you can build up to this. Some of you will be a little bit less depending on age or like your history and how much you trained, or if you have any pre-existing conditions. But really, in reality, protein is your body weight. You multiply that by 0.7 all the way up to 1 gram per pound of protein. Okay, so let's see. So if you say you just for easy math, we go, you weigh 100 pounds, you're going to eat 70 to 100 grams of protein per day. Okay, now take that with your body weight and you multiply it by 0.7 or up to 1 gram per pound of body weight. All right, and some of you are going to look at that number and be like, oh my God, yes, I get it. Believe it. Right? But that's where we want to be for the most part. Okay. So that allows us to build lean muscle tissue. And as you see that and you look on your in-body, you'll be able to see that adapt over time. Okay. And then we need to build out the rest of it. And so as we go through this, I want you to see how this will work. So as we break into Team Builder here in a minute, I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to show you some of the things that we have in there. What we've actually put in is a macro calculator, which will give you an idea of how many calories you should be eating. It's really accurate. I feel really good about this. We put together a form. And so that's where we're going to start. So we can break that down for you so you can get an idea of how many calories should I be eating. We wanted to make it as clear as possible for you. Now, what I want you to know is there are some of you, and we've experienced this, right, with some of our metabolic reset people, right, Libby? As you look at the initial, like, how many calories should I eat? And you go, how many? And sometimes it's more than you think. You're like, holy crap, there's no way I'm going to lose weight eating that amount of food. Well, one of the things that if you look at the in-body on the top right corner of the scan, when you do that, is it has a basal metabolic rate. You see, our body costs energy to function every single day. Like your brain needs energy, your heart needs energy to beat, your lungs need energy to breathe. You know that your brain takes a lot of energy. It takes a lot of energy to function. So anyway, especially you, John. You got that.
Yeah, thank you.
You got that big brain over there.
A lot of energy.
That's that smoke coming out my ears.
Coming out of my ears. So anyway, so that's the deal. So if we look at this and you go like, the first thing that I always recommend to people is to start tracking your food. And an easy place to do that is MyFitnessPal. It's free. Yeah. You can log that for free, right? You can put your stuff in there. And the reason why we do that is I would prefer that you did that for the next 5 to 7 days and you just document what you're eating. And here's why. We don't know what type of change you need to make until we know exactly what you're doing. All right, it's really easy. Most people go like, when I'm gonna lose weight, I just cut calories, right? For women, it's like, you want to lose weight? Great, 1,200 calories. Eat it. That's all you do. Go have success, right? And then it's like, okay, well, that worked for me when I needed to lose a couple pounds at 25. Maybe worked a little bit when I was 30, 35, 40. All of a sudden, it's like, that doesn't work anymore. And I don't understand why, right? Well, if we don't feed ourselves enough, we have this number, our basal metabolic rate, which tells us how much our body needs to function. If you're not feeding it enough, then ultimately it goes, you know what, we're going to hold on to every single thing that we're going to eat, that this person's going to eat, because I need it for energy. Because John, you got that big brain, we got to keep it functioning. So I'm going to hold on to every piece I need. So that's really important. Now, if you get to a number and you're like, sorry, let me back up. I'm getting ahead of myself. So track your food, and that way you can get a good idea of where you're at before you implement any change. Figure out where you're at first, and then you can understand. Because as we start to break this down, if we have people that kind of end up on different points of the spectrum. You have people that are under eating, you have people that are overeating, and then you have people that are kind of eating in this range, but like I'm eating like very little protein and I'm eating a whole lot of carbs, or my fat's super high, right? So information is our best friend in this scenario. So figuring out where you're at is step number 1, okay? Then we're going to break into our macro calculator. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip over in here into Team Builder, and I know people have some questions about it, and I'll break into that as well after we kind of go through the whole thing, but I want to show you what this looks like as we go into this. So I'm going to share my screen. maybe. Okay, here we go. All right. Obviously, I'm on my laptop, but you can access all this information on your app. You can access it on a desktop as well. So we'll walk through all that here in a little bit. So as we go through, in your app or on the desktop, there is a tab that says Documents and Links. Okay, so it should have like either 3 ellipses that says More, or it's like a 3-bar thing in the corner of the app. You can see that. And again, if you have questions, I'll walk through it here in a minute with you, but it'd be super cool if this would pull up. There we go. All right. So within this, I literally wanted to put everything in it. So our team talked about it. We talked about it programming. We changed that up a little bit, and we put this in here. We said, let's make this as simple as possible. So I'm gonna walk you through a couple things, and then I'll break some of this down on what it means nutritionally. Okay. Number one, here's the InBody link. If you're like, hey, what's that link for InBody again? Bang, you just hit that little thing, and it's gonna pull up the InBody link, and then you can book your InBody from the comfort of your bed, right there. Bang, right? So you go like, hey, I want to pick an InBody, click the date, and then it pulls up our time. Okay, so no excuses. Get your InBody set. Next, second thing, if you need the link for this call every other Friday, so let's see, or every other Wednesday, excuse me. So 2 weeks from now is the 16th. You're like, I don't know what the link is. Boom, it's right here. Call link for bi-monthly calls right there. So you can click on that and it'll take you right to this spot. Okay. So next is our starting point goal setting sheet. So as you get in here, this is a great, there's 2 things in here. There's a demo of this, and then there's an actual blank document that you can fill out. I want to pull this up. Oh, it's got to download it. So it will download it. You can see it. What's super cool about this, can everybody see that?
This isn't all available on the phone app. This must be on the computer, right?
It should be on your app. Which app do you have? You have the orange app because you have an Android. Correct?
I have the black one and it's on there. Everything's
It's on
on
both.
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. It should be on both. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just know, like on the iPhone, that they updated it about a month ago, I believe. From what I understand, everything's on, should be on either app. But as you go through this, there is the Android users do not have an updated black app at this point yet. So it's not, you know, Apple people get all the cool stuff first. So, all right. So if you have questions, we can go through it, Tammy. Well, I'll walk you through it. But here is this. This is our starting point, right? So here's your goal. Here's your spark. So I talked about the burn with Ben Newman earlier, but here's your spark. What do you looking like I'm pregnant when I'm not? It's frustrating. I hate having to wear or buy bigger clothes, right? So daily actions, walk through that. So setting your bedtime and your wake time. These 4 things right here, if you don't know where to start or what habits to build for yourself, I would highly recommend starting with somewhere around these 4. Bedtime, wake time, right? What time are you going to go to bed? Sorry, let me back it up. What time do you need to wake up in the morning? You subtract 7 or 8 from that, and then you go to bed at that time. And then you figure out a way to make that happen every single day. If something's important to you, you can build it in to your phone. You can make it a thing. We set a wake time, right? You set your morning alarm. You can set a nighttime alarm too. I know a lot of people have trouble going to sleep because it's just like, I don't want to go to sleep. Next is hydration. Hydration is super important. Hydration will impact all your hormones, just like sleep will as well. So we want to make sure that we are getting enough hydration in. The basic formula for you for hydration is half your body weight in ounces plus 15. So quick math, if you weigh 200 pounds, you're going to drink 100 ounces, 115 ounces of water. 100, half your body weight plus 15. Okay, so that's the goal. drink that. You're going to have to figure out the preparation is the separation. All right. Being prepared doesn't just mean knowing what food you're going to eat. It's hydration. When you start to take on new tasks like this, you're going to have to figure out how in the heck, if you're drinking like 40 ounces of water a day, you're like, how do I get to 100? What the heck? It may take you a little bit of time. That's okay. But figure out like, how am I going to do that? I'm going to wake up in the morning and have 10 ounces right away. I'm going to have some right before my workout, have 10 ounces to drink there. I'm going to have, 2 bottles while I'm working out, whatever it is. Figure out what that plan is, and it will allow you to work more efficiently. We talked about the protein. Protein, when you are not eating protein and you start eating more, it's a little challenging, right? Because protein will make you feel full. That's another benefit of protein. So you're going to have to build up a little bit over time, but also understand how you're going to get all of your protein in. And then last thing is training sessions. You don't have to get 8. This was just an example, but certainly we want to plan out our sessions. Our goal would be to get 3 to 4 training sessions in and then get some cardiovascular work. We have some specific goals. I'll walk you through some daily habits also in the next thing. So start and stop. Look, reading is a superpower, people. So I highly recommend you read or learn or do something every single day that's going to allow you to get better, because that's a mindset shift. So there's that. If you go into this movement macro calculator, click on that. If you go in here, this is super cool, really simple. Here's the deal. Male, female, put in your weight, boom, height in inches, 74, age, don't look at this.
Oh.
What's your activity? Who said whoa? Was that you, Kaylee?
I said, well, I didn't realize
You were that
You
old.
didn't realize what?
that
I
you're
was that
that
old?
young, that you're that young.
Wait a second. How old did you think I was, Teresa?
36.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so here's the deal. This will give you
Yeah.
an idea of what your calories should be. So I just put in mine
Yeah.
to give you a rough idea, right? So grams of protein, here's how many carbs, and here's how much fat per day. Okay, this stuff up here is fine. It just gives you, if you don't know how to calculate calories, it's real simple. If you take 231, excuse me, and multiply it by 4, you should it should ultimately give you 922. Let's double check and make sure my math is correct.
Yeah.
924. So it's an estimate, right? So protein and carbohydrates have a caloric value of 4, right? So if you eat 10 grams of protein, it's going to roughly give you about 40 calories. Okay. Same thing for carbs. Fats are more dense, so it's worth 9. Okay. So if you eat 10 grams of fat, it's going to be 90 calories. Excuse me. Okay. So that's the idea. So just so you know, this is in there. This is a calculator. This gives you an idea of where you should be. Okay. So number 1, track your food in MyFitnessPal, figure out what you're eating now. And then number 2, we can start to figure out what should be the appropriate thing for you calories wise. Okay. So that's in there as well. Macro calculator. So you can build out what works for you. Now, next we have in here a couple things. The movement nutrition guides. This is built around a couple of things. So we gave you the macro calculator, which will give you some specific stuff. The nutrition guides are built out to literally walk you through and go, here's the whole deal. So welcome to your personal balance, whatever. So here's your diet plan. This gives you an idea how many calories you're going to eat. What's the value of this? So this type of eating is a little different, but it gives you a structure of how you could eat throughout the course of your day. Okay. So like this deal here, there's a couple different options for breakfast, right? Oatmeal, cottage cheese, some olive oil, and some veggies and berries, right? These options will give you these numbers down here, right? So 1,475 calories. This will map it out for you and give you an idea of what to eat. Okay. Now, if you're using like a macro calculator, this may not perfectly work out to exactly what you want to do, but it is good because it gives you some options. I wanted to provide you with some context. So you're like, I need to eat more than 1,475. Okay, well, we've got all kinds. There's 1,550, 1,625, right? So there's more and more over here, different options, different ideas, okay? So you can do that. As you scroll down, when I talked about protein,
Okay.
some of you may have been like, well, I don't know all the different ways that I can get protein in. Well, here's a good list. There's poultry, fish, meat, and eggs. So you can look at what those are. All right. And then that'll give you a better, some ideas of protein. Here's some dairy products, obviously. So this gives you just different options for your proteins. There's vegan protein if you need that down here. Okay. Next, carbohydrate serving, berries, fruits, all that kind of stuff, grapes, right? So that's that fruit and berries here. Here's your cereal and rice and potato products, more starchy things, some more complex carbohydrates, just to give you an idea of what the value of each of these is, okay? So that way, as you're looking through things, one of the challenges, especially early on of building out a nutrition plan, is figuring out what you can eat. Because even if I was like, hey, here's a calculator to figure out what kind of macros you need to eat, that's why we gave you the nutrition guide, so you can start to figure it out and start to put those things together. So while there may not be a nutrition guide that exactly fits your calorie range or your protein, carb, intake, we're giving you a range. So at least you have an idea and go, look, it's a little bit like a math problem. Like you got to figure out, okay, so I need 40 grams of protein here. I need 20 grams here, right? So we can break that stuff down, but this will give you an idea of what that looks like. Vegetables and root vegetables. So as you continue to scroll down, here's our fat sources, fat servings, sauces, all that kind of stuff. So that's an idea. So there you go. That is the nutrition guide. So it gives you a bunch of stuff we want to map out and clearly give you an idea what that looks like. Next, when you're looking at the nutrition guides, you may look at that and go like, there's no way I'm going to eat oatmeal and cottage cheese with some oil for breakfast. Great. Here's your recipe. Norma's like, I ain't doing it. Yeah. Okay. So we are providing you with these. There are over 300 recipes in here, 87. So these are, so this one is the MF stands for movement fitness. By the way, John, get your head out of the gutter back there. All right. I see. I'm just kidding. So the 5 ingredient recipes, these literally have 5 ingredients. That's it. The high protein recipes, the low carb meal pack, and the smoothie recipes. There's 64 of these, 87 of these, 111 here. If you click on it,
Wow.
it'll take you to this thing. So there we go. Good. Look at that. Oh my goodness.
That looks good.
Woo. There you go. So what's super cool about this is all these guides look the same. They just have a little different content. So as you go through it, here are all the recipes. Turkey and broccoli stir fry. Here's egg and turkey stuffed peppers. Here's high protein blueberry pancakes. Okay, all that. So you can go through this. This obviously tells you if it's gluten-free, dairy-free, low carb, meal prepper, freezer friendly, high protein with a 20 gram or more per serving, vegetarian, quick, contains nuts. Here's a sample weekly meal plan. All right, so you can look at it and go like, hey, I'm going to map out all these options, right? So the cinnamon roll protein smoothie you can use. Ooh, you can use that Movement Fitness cinnamon roll protein powder for that. All right, so here's a sample shopping list, right? So you can go through that. So as you go through this, what's super cool about it is as you start to use like MyFitnessPal, which I highly recommend, you can see here's this meal. So this is the Spanish zucchini tortilla. All right, so here's how many it serves. Here's what you need to do. Down here, it's gluten-free, it's dairy-free, it's high protein. I forgot what MP stood for, and it's vegetarian. What's cool is you can take your little phone and you can scan this when you're in MyFitnessPal, and it'll automatically put the macros in there.
That's nice.
So you don't have to go like, oh, let me spend all my time putting that in there. Okay, and then obviously it gives you all of your nutrients right here. So don't tell me I don't know what to eat because we just gave you 300 of them. I don't know what to eat. There you go. All right, so last thing on this, we put together this March to summer calendar. So in the your starting point, we put it together and we talked about some daily habits, right? Wake and sleep time. We talked about water, making sure you get your protein in. Those are great habits. Making sure you get your workouts planned. Oops, I just downloaded it twice. So nice, I did it twice. Okay, so here's what we're looking at. We wanted to map this out to make this super simple. A couple of things. Number one, if you're looking for the in-body scan link, just click on the QR code. Just hover your camera over that thing, boom, it'll book it in. Second, here's the nutrition call link, the little blue guy right there, bang. So if you don't know where it is, you can print this thing out and you can have it. I recommend you print this out because here's the ultimate goal. Okay, let me walk you through. Again, in-body schedule is open the first week of the month. Our nutrition call, obviously this is tonight, so here it is. Now, when we look at building habits and patterns, here are a couple simple things that I want you to do. And we've talked about all of these so far tonight, but we put complete on there and there was supposed to be a checkbox and it's not, but you can imagine it's a checkbox or you can just draw a line through it. Building habits sometimes requires a visual. So that way you can go, I accomplished this, okay? We made this calendar not only to be a thing to remind you of when the calls are or when to do your in-bodies, but to go, look, throughout the course of your week, are you getting 3 to 4 training sessions in? Are you tracking your food in MyFitnessPal? Are you getting your 10,000 steps every single day? And are you reading 10 pages of a nonfiction book? Atomic Habits would be one of my first recommendations for you. The Power of Habits would be another recommendation for you. There are tons. I'm actually going to put together a book list so you guys can have that as well. The Energy Bus. The Energy Bus is a book I highly recommend. So, but to go on there and to go, I got this from my sister-in-law. She is a workout fanatic, but she has 3 young kids, so she works out at home. She doesn't live here. She works out at home. And one of the things she does is she prints out a calendar. She has a calendar and she marks off every day that I work out. And I thought, what a great, simple, easy idea. To look at these things and go, look, you can't, the 3 to 4 sessions of movement you kind of have to do on a weekly basis. I get it, it's not perfect. But did you get your 10,000 steps in? Did you work out when you said you were going to work out? Okay. Did you track your food and did you read your pages? Now, for you, if there's something else that you want to throw in that, I got 7 hours of sleep, whatever you want to put in there. I got my protein in, I drank my water. You can write it in yourself and go, these are the things that I want to accomplish as well. But I know that if you're training 3 to 4 days a week, if you're tracking your food and making adjustments as necessary, making sure you stay on track, getting your 10,000 steps in, and reading 10 pages of a nonfiction book. You're going to continue to shape your mind, stay positive. You're going to continue to put yourself in a scenario where you're going to be in a calorie deficit. And that's the whole goal of ultimately making sure if we eat lean protein and we eat less than we burn, yeah, I don't know, I'm getting crazy. So if we do that, ultimately you're going to be in a calorie deficit. Any diet will work if you do that. The question is we don't want to, what kind of plan can you be on that you'll stick with? That's the goal. So I don't recommend anybody does a keto or an intermittent fasting or anything else unless you know, hey, you know what? I could do that forever. So I'll tell you, for me, I just eat sensible because I know that at some point I want some foods that I can fit into my day that I wouldn't want to eat every single day. But I know, like, I mean, I had the Macro Kitchen birthday pancakes earlier today, and they were delicious. But if I'd have said to myself, like, I don't eat sweet, good tasting food, right? Then I'd have been screwed, right? Like, then I couldn't do that. And none of you would like me less than you currently do. Okay, so that's the deal. So, but this idea is that you would print this out and you put it there and you go, these are the dates. I'm going to mark this off, because if you stack 3 months together, you may not get to your end goal, but I can guarantee you're going to make a ton of progress. And if you continue to build one step at a time and get 1% better day over day, and you keep building on top of that, you're going to get to where you want to go in the long term by living the life that you want, rather than being on a restrictive diet that you hate. So that is what we are doing for the months of March, April, and May. And to be quite honest, we want to continue to figure out how do we integrate this in the long term, and to help out there as well. So we're going to put that in. And so I'd love to have you work through all of this stuff, because I know that if you do, you're going to be successful. So that is the March to summer. Oh, the last thing, the March to summer program. So in Team Builder, our goal with this, one of the things that we did when we made our transition from our training from sheets into what we're doing currently, we are trying to figure out the best way that we can show you, have the training in there. A lot of people want to log their own stuff because they want to keep on track of it and try to set some, continue to push themselves. And we also wanted a visual way that we could show you what the workout was when you're in the building, and also allow you to have access if you're traveling or doing something else, to go like, hey, you don't have to like take a picture of your sheet. Like, you just have the workout of the day in your pocket, workout, and your training plan in your pocket. So this is why we came upon Team Builder. Team Builder is a really great resource and a tool. And it's something that, look, there's some speed bumps that we're trying to figure out. I gave some people some faulty code, so that's all on me. It's not on the actual system, so that's my fault, user error. But at the end of the day, the goal is that we would have something that you can use. And what we did is adapted our training to go, we have our strength training sessions as normal, and we're going to continue to offer some metabolic sessions, because as we transitioned from sheets, one of the things we found is people started working way harder, which we love, but we also want to make sure we don't have injuries and issues. So we started figuring out, how do we build our program to be a little more adaptable? And this system allows us to do that. So obviously you can see here's our calendar, for our strength training, but we also have our metabolic calendar in there as well. So, because we know that if we build muscle and we burn some fat, we're going to ultimately get to where we want to go. So that's the adaptive change that we're making. So we're going to have our programming, it's going to be progressive over time. So we're going to challenge ourselves and then take it back down and challenge ourselves, in like weights and different stuff. So that way we're not just like lift more, or whatever as we go on. So, wow. How about that?
It's good.
Good stuff.
All right. So let me know, what questions do you have?
What happens in that tube? It says 2 in-body scans. What does that mean exactly? What are you scanning?
You.
Okay, yeah, but what do you get out of it? What are the results?
Yep. So in body, let me see if I can pull one up.
I've got one here in the office, but it'd probably be hard to see.
Let me see if I can, I can get one here in a second. Okay, here we go. Okay, so this is what our in-body scan sheet will look like. Okay.
Mhm.
Jane Doe. So name, here's your height, age, gender, test date, time. Okay.
Yeah.
We have a fancy little thing that says movement fitness over here. Body composition analysis, it tells you what your total weight is. Okay.
Mhm.
This is your lean body mass. This is your total body water, right? So if you added these two things together, you're going to get this number. Now, total body water tells you here's your intracellular water. So this is water inside of your muscle. Good thing we want to have. This is extracellular water. So this is water outside of our body, or outside of our, not outside of your body, outside of your muscle. Now, this is important to know because if you have more extracellular water, that means that you have inflammation of some sort. So if you have a higher amount of water outside of your muscle, that means there's inflammation going on. It could be like, oh, I had an injury, I sprained my ankle, or I hurt my knee, and you have inflammation around that. We know the water is going to go up because that's part of the recovery process.
Okay.
But also, if you have like systemic overall total body inflammation where you're eating, too many, processed foods and too much garbage, your extracellular water will go up as well. Okay, so that's what that looks like.
Yeah. All right.
And then here's your dry lean mass, your total body fat mass. So this is the amount of fat that this person has in their body. And then as you look muscle fat analysis, here's your weight, here's the weight, here's the skeletal muscle mass, so total muscle in the body, and then the body fat mass it shows again. So that gives us an idea. And if you look at this, you'll see that this person, if you drew a line here, this person would kind of look like the letter C, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, the goal would be is how do we get that person to look, so we want that to kind of line up and look like a letter I to start. That would be the first process. And then the second would be to go to a letter D, right? Where this skeletal muscle mass would be like that. And then this would come out. It doesn't have to be obviously a massive line, but that's kind of the general idea.
Okay.
Here's your obesity analysis. So body mass index, BMI. I will never talk to you about BMI. I think there's a place for it, but it's very limited. Percent of body fat. So we'll look at that. We look at our segmental lean analysis. This is important because it tells us this person right here, if you looked at this, we would want to do some major muscle building for them. All right, because these numbers, this 90 and this 89.9, 89.6, excuse me, tells us that this woman, she's a woman, does not have enough muscle to effectively sustain her body. Okay, so that's the problem. Because if you look at this, there's a minus.
Yeah.
There's not average, but a ideal, and then there's an over. Okay, and so lean muscle analysis doesn't matter if that's far over. We want it to be over 100. That's the goal. Here's your extracellular water and your total body water analysis. When we look at this, this just tells us we want to be in a range here, right? So between 0.36 and 0.39 That's where we want our body water to be. If we're higher or lower, then we have an issue that we need to address. So here's your body composition. Over time, as you'll see, it'll track your weight, it'll track your skeletal muscle mass, how that moves, percent of body fat, and then your water. Now, there are a number of people on here that have done this. There are changes on here, and this goes back to it is not an exact science, but this machine does a really good job and is very accurate at tracking over time. It is the #1 machine on the market. It's 99% accurate to a DEXA scan, which is very, very good. But you're going to come in and there's going to be times where it's like, hey, my muscle dipped down and then jump right back up. Like, is that my fault? Or was the scan that was a little weird or whatever, right? I know that like for females, if a woman is on her menstrual cycle, like that will have a massive impact on the in-body, and they shouldn't even do one there, right? If you have a high sodium meal, that can impact it. If you drink or work out, you have to do it before your workout, like without water, preferably. Like that's the goal, because we want as little blocking or changing this analysis as possible. So, and then this is your body fat mass, your lean mass control. Here's your segmental fat analysis. This tells you where your body fat is. This is not like we're going to target this necessarily, because if I knew a way to only target your trunk, this call would have 470 million people on it, and I'd be a trillionaire. Okay? So, it's just not. But we can see how things change over time, right? Ideally, those lines go down pretty consistently and pretty closely together, right? So that would be the goal there. This is your basal metabolic rate. I talked about it earlier. This is the amount of calories that your body needs to just function. And then visceral fat level. This is why I talked about body fat levels rather than just weight loss. Visceral fat is a big one, because visceral fat is the fat that covers your organs, right? And we don't want that. We want as little of that as possible. If you are over 10, that is a risk factor. So like this woman is at an 11. So this is someone that needs to do some strength training, needs to lose a little bit of body fat. And overall, she's not in a bad spot. This is one that's tricky. You go like 135 pounds. She doesn't really need to lose a whole lot of weight, because she's about where she needs to be. But what we need to do is change the composition of her body. So for some of you, there may be big changes that we need to make from a weight loss and a body fat perspective.
Okay.
For some of you, it's like, I just need to change how I look a little bit, how my body is composed. So does that help, John?
Yeah, it helps a lot. That's very
That's really interesting.
inclusive.
Yeah.
Oh,
There you go.
Ooh.
Good.
Okay.
thank you.
All right, what else? Yeah, you're welcome.
Well, I'm gonna say goodbye because I have to get up at 3:30, and I made my goal to go to sleep at 8 every night so I can get this at least the 7 hours. So I'm gonna say goodnight. Okay.
Right.
See
Bye.
you.
Go be great.
Bye.
Good job.
Good night. Good night.
See that? I love that. That's dedication right there. Good, Norma. Norma.
Ah.
Oops.
All right. What else?
A lot of information, but a lot of good information. So we need to just go through it all and set it up and
Yeah, parse through it and figure out, like, again, take it slow, one step at a time, continue to work through that stuff. You can't change everything. I mean, you really can't. So the goal is how do you start to pick the things that are important, figure out what's really important to you, and then move forward one step at a time. Because when we start to go like, let me change 40 things, number one, we don't know what's working. And number two, like you could end up getting to a point where you're like, I'm super frustrated. I don't know what to do, right? So this is why if we look at it actually as something that's going to be a lifestyle and something we're going to continue to do over the long term, you're going to be way more successful there than going like, oh, he said, eat this calorie, do this thing, eat that, do this, do that, do this. And then you're like, I don't know if I can do that, right?
Yeah.
Well, you might not be able to do it today, but you will be able to do it over time.
Okay. So we should set up the body scan 7 days after tracking our food on MyFitnessPal.
No, you can do the body scan now. Do it this week. So our goal is to do it this week and then the third week so we can track it in. So you could do it whatever, Friday if you're in next. You could just lock it in, do that before your workout
Yeah.
Oh,
or whenever
okay.
you're in next. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But track that because that's just going to give us, that's a starting point. So you'll get it, track it, and see where you're at.
Whatever it is. Okay.
Okay, so before we do the in-body, you don't want us working out or drinking water or certain foods. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
so the goal would be to eat or drink as little as possible. Now, look, if you're like, hey, John, you're going to come in and train at 11:30, you're going to have breakfast, you're going to have your food. Like, this isn't like a fasting lab, all right? Like,
Yeah.
you don't have to do that. But if you're coming in at 11:30, like, give yourself at least an hour beforehand where you're not, eating or drinking there. That'll make a better scan and, better analysis.
Okay.
And then, I mean, it literally, you come in, it'll take 5 minutes. Like, we'll get in and get you set up and all that. So
Okay,
Good. Looking forward.
yeah, that sounds good.
it'll be good.
Yep.
Libby, Kaylee, Tammy, anything?
We're good.
Good. Okay, well. That's good
Breathe.
stuff.
We'll
Get
have
some
questions
water.
tomorrow.
You gonna drink yet? You need some water, coach.
I know, right? Like I had like barely a little bit. I was like just cruising through it. So anyway,
It was
all
very
right,
good.
well, I appreciate you guys. Thanks for jumping on. And then
Yeah.
if you have any questions, obviously reach out and we'll go from there.
Appreciate
Okay,
it.
thank you very much.
Can't
Yeah.
hear this
All right,
enough.
y'all.
Coach.
You.
I appreciate it.
Yep,
Yeah.
you're welcome. Go be great. See ya.
Okay, thank
Bye.
you.